Alright everyone, we're at the piston ring section of the video series here. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly because it's pretty cut and dry. Basically, when you get your pistons in, they should come with piston rings. On this kit, the gentleman had Weisco pistons, and they kind of come in a kit like this with instructions, but we'll get into that here in a minute. You'll notice a couple different sets of rings that you have here. Let me move these two out of here. Okay, so we'll take that out there. Now these three rings here, okay, you have your catcher ring and your oiling rings. The purpose of these is to keep oil in the piston to be able to lubricate the piston as it slides up and down in the cylinder. And you'll notice you have a part where it kind of comes to a tip. This you want to have facing up when you install it. When you see here, if you look here on the bottom of these, how it kind of has a lip that sticks out from it. The purpose of this lip is that your oiling rings will seat with inside there, and as you compress your piston rings onto the piston, it'll actually kind of squeeze this together and hold it in there. But this is how your piston ends up becoming lubricated. So one will be on the top, one will be on the bottom. And the direction of the gap is very important. On this, we have a steel ring, which is your secondary ring. And then we have a chromoly ring, which is your primary ring or your top ring. On these are directional. These two, your primary and your secondary, are directional. So there are some that are imprinted with a dimple on it, and this particular set has a letter N on it. Okay, same thing with this one. It has a letter N. That dimple, or the one that has the letters on it, will be facing up towards the top of the piston. This is very critical because these are angled. This has a back cut in it, and this one has, on the one end, you can see where it has a little cutout. It looks like in the shape of an L. So these are directional. This is important that these go in the right order, in the right way, and the gap is facing in the right direction. Your oiling rings, you don't need to gap these really. The importance of whether these are facing up or down doesn't matter. You can just install them as long as one's up top, one's down at the bottom. Now, the way that you want to have these installed, okay, as discussed in the first video, the placement and how you install these and assemble these is critical to whether or not this engine is going to run right. Because of the way that this one is, this is the passenger side, and so the dimple is going to be facing towards the front of the engine. So this is basically going to be your top side here. So as you install these, what you want to do is you're going to take your catch ring, which is this one here, okay, make sure, okay, see how that's in the wrong direction? We're going to change that, okay. We're going to make sure that this tip, the end of it, okay, see how it's facing up, or it's cut up? We want this to be facing up. So when you do this, this opening and this gap will be facing down when you put it into the back part of your ring, your ring groove right in here in the piston, okay. Your first oiling ring, which will go on the very bottom, you're going to want to have facing the 3 o'clock direction, which is, if you're looking at your piston, it's going to be right over here, okay. Your second oiling ring, which is going to go on the top part of your catch ring, you're going to have facing at about 10 o'clock position, okay. Now your secondary ring, which is going to be your steel ring here, this gap opening is going to be facing 9 o'clock, which is this direction, okay. And then your primary ring, which is your very top ring, you're going to be having face at 3 o'clock. So basically what you want to do, and I might have messed that up a minute ago, so my apologies, okay. Your oiling rings are going to look like a V, okay, like this, okay. They're going to be facing in that direction. one here, one there, and then your opening to your catch ring is down here. Your secondary ring is going to be facing right here, and your primary is going to be right where that dimple is. Now, it's important that you know your bore size and what type of driving you're going to be doing on this, because you're going to want to set your ring gap. Ring gap is critical on these as you build it, because as the engine heats up, rings begin to contract and expand or shrink and come close to touching. And so let me grab the steel ring so I can show you here. It'll be a little bit easier to tell, okay? So say you have once you're done filing your gap down and it's installed in the car, okay? As your engine starts to heat up, that gap starts to close down. When you run your car really hard or you race your car, the gap will start to get very, very, very small. And if you don't have your gap set right, your two ends will connect and touch each other, and you will end up destroying your engine. That is what you do not want to do. So ring gap is very critical. On this customer's vehicle, for his LS1, he's got a medium, mild to a aggressive cam. He's got a few other things, but he's going to be running it as naturally aspirated, and he is going to be running nitrous to it, but on occasion. So it's not going to be very, very heavy. Now on these LS1s, because this has already been honed out to the maximum it needs to be, the bore size that's on this now is, what is it? 3.903. Normal bore piston ring gap on these is you want to have 20 on the top ring and maybe 22 or so on the secondary ring. Because he's going to be running nitrous, we're going to have a little bit larger gap. Generally speaking, whatever your top ring is, you want to have 2 more than what it already is. So say you set your gap at 20 thousandths of an inch on your primary, your secondary you're going to have as 22 thousandths. If you set your top ring as 22 thousandths, then you're going to want to have your second ring as 24 thousandths. So basically, once you're done that, you will only have your gap set appropriately. But most piston ring gap sheets will have a kind of a cheat sheet, if you will. You know, and they'll kind of give you your top ring bore size, your second ring bore size, and then you'll do some multiplication on it, which is all okay. Pretty self-explanatory.